Welcome to another episode of The Modern Hotelier. We're excited to release this episode with Brian Kelly, founder and CEO of The Points Guy. David, local guy, also from Doylestown area. What did you think about this episode?
Well, it's great to see a fellow Central Bucks East high school alumni doing well, and I thought it was great. I mean, his book is a book I'm going to read because I'm always caught up in this dilemma of my American Airlines, my American Express, and how to use these points. So I think this is a great episode for anyone to listen to.
Absolutely. And his book signing, the first spot is in Doylestown. So pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it was awesome just how he talked about not only loyalty through points and things like that, but how to build up points. And really, I mean, the guy has a masterclass of how to build up points and the best way to use them, whether you're transferring or using through Amex. So it was just a really cool episode with Brian, and he definitely knows everything there is to know about points. So stay tuned if you want to learn how to best use your points, and enjoy.
Enjoy it. Welcome to The Modern Hotelier, hospitality's most engaged podcast. I'm David Malilli.
I'm Steve Karen.
And I'm John Boomhofer.
Steve, who do we have on the program today?
Yeah, David, today we have Brian Kelly, the founder and CEO of The Points Guy. Brian is known as the go-to expert for maximizing points, miles, and rewards. Brian has revolutionized the way we think about travel, and his platform has helped travelers around the globe unlock once-in-a-lifetime experiences, all while saving big. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thanks for having me. It's about time.
Yeah.
So, Brian, we're going to go through a couple areas. We're going to do a lightning round. We're going to get to know you a little bit better, and then we're going to jump into some industry topics. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. What is something that you wish you were better at?
Ooh, I wish I was better, funny enough, at videography and photography. So much of my life's on social media, and, I'm 41, so I call myself an elder millennial, and I feel like my trip reports don't quite capture the beauty of the places that I'm going. So it's been on my to-do list to up my, videography skills.
Okay. What's the most used app on your phone?
Ooh, I would say, Instagram, duh.
Got it. All right. What's a luxury you can't live without?
Noise canceling headphones.
Okay.
Highly recommend for anyone traveling. It really takes the stress away when you can't control what's around you, but you can control the beautiful noises going into your ears.
All right. If you could trade places with someone for a day, who would it be?
I would trade places with, I'd have to go with Richard Branson. I mean, I've met him. He's iconic, but his life's exciting. I try to live an exciting life, and I feel like he's got me beat tenfold.
Got it. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
My dad told me when I was starting The Points Guy, it was not a blog. It was a labor of love, time intensive. And he said, figure out a business where you can make money in your sleep. And lo and behold, that ended up happening. And it was great advice.
That is great advice. What's your favorite city and why?
It really depends. I am a Paris lover. It's just so romantic. So, such good food, great hotels. It's a vibe always. And I can fly Air France, which their first class is one of the best.
That's awesome. That's great. So now we're going to dive into a little bit of your background, kind of where you grew up, what makes you tick. So you were born on Long Island and moved to Jameson when you were 7 years old. Is that correct?
That is correct. And for those who have no idea where Jameson is, it's a suburb of Philadelphia in Bucks County.
Got it. So how did that shape you into who you are today?
It's interesting. So I grew up, my mom's one of 10 kids. My dad's one of 4, Long Island Catholic, Irish Catholic family. So family was and is huge to us. So my mom's whole family, when we moved 2.5 hours away to outside of Philadelphia, it was like we were moving to Paris. They were distraught. How could we leave Long Island? Anyone who's familiar with the culture of Long Island, it's Strong Island. Like, people don't leave. And I think it made our family more resilient. And we're used to traveling 2-3 hours every time we wanted to see family. So I feel like in a way it helped cultivate me as a traveler, like always living in the car, sometimes every weekend in the summer to see family. And that because we moved for my dad's job, he ended up getting another job. His career took off. And funny enough, the reason I'm the points guy is because my dad worked for a startup that he started traveling, he worked from home in 1995.
Wow.
So I became his guru in booking all of his travel. So never in a million years did I think at the time that kind of side job at age 12 would become anything many years later. So yeah, moving to Long Island changed my life in a lot of ways.
And so you debated going to American University, but you followed your brothers to the University of Pittsburgh, and you got your degree in Spanish and economics. How did you choose those two as your degrees?
I always loved speaking another language. I loved the world. I'd gone to the Caribbean. I'd never been to Europe until I was in college. I got a cheap flight to Ireland that kind of got me hooked. And then that year I studied abroad in Spain, really hooked, and and I was broke and just road tripping and just really had that urge to travel more and more. And with going to Pitt, I didn't want to go to Pitt. It was a public school, and at the time, Pitt's now a top 50 university. It's a really great education, but it all came down to dollars and cents because my parents were willing to help me go to public school, which I think at the time was $12,000 a year, and American was, I think, 35 or 40. And I am so thankful that I decided to go to Pitt, where I knew I could get a liberal arts education. And I knew my major didn't really matter because it was all about getting experience. I interned every summer with businesses. So I wasn't in the business school, but I was getting business internships and then getting involved in campus and student government. And those were the experiences that dramatically shaped my life. Being student body president, learning how to communicate effectively, build trust, manage a team, manage a $2 million budget. I was doing this when I was in college. So that really prepped me for what was to come, 7 years after graduation, when I started this little fun side blog that just blew up into a major, major business.
That's great. That's great. And I think somebody snuck you the questions before this because you're leading right into the next one. So.
I actually, I swear this is the presidential debate. I had no questions.
I know. I'm just joking with you. But so that's the next question. You were interested in student politics. You first caught the bug at CB East, where Mr. Malilly is also an alumni of, and you served as a senior class vice president and treasurer junior year. And then you were the first two-term student body president at the University of Pittsburgh. What got you interested in that at CB East, and what made you really passionate about it?
Wow, I've never in my life been asked about my CB East history. So kudos to you guys. I don't know if this is your AI assistant going to town, but well done. In high school, I always wanted something. So I'm 6'7", and I just never was that good at basketball. And I was so annoyed with people saying, "Oh, you don't play basketball?" No, I don't like basketball. But I wanted to be able to, for my parents to be proud of me for doing something. And I just was never that athletic. In student government, I always knew, I think, being really tall. From day one, I remember in kindergarten, kids would follow me. I could be the leader of the pack, and it was sort of natural to me. And so in high school, I remember there being some drama about prom. We didn't like the way junior prom was being, I think they were going to get rid of it or something. So I said, well, I'm going to run for treasurer of my junior year. And as treasurer, I can have an impact and make sure we charge the right amount, have the junior prom that we want. And people elected me. And I think I got hooked on that. And then we had a great junior prom. So the next year I ran for VP and had an amazing experience. So going into college, I remember my mom said, be the big fish at a small pond, go to Pitt and you're going to run the place. And, that sort of happened.
So a lot of people don't know this, but there are a lot of great restaurants in the suburbs outside of Philly. And one of your favorite ones is the Black Bass Inn. I believe it's in New Hope. What do you order when you go? What's your go-to?
Yeah, the Black Bass is actually in Lumberville, just north.
Oh, yeah, right across the bridge.
Yeah, they've got an amazing crab cake. They've always got really great seafood, steaks, burgers. I also love Stella. Stella's a new restaurant. Well, not new. It's been around for a while. Famous Philly chef, really beautiful, right on the river. For anyone listening, if you've never been to New Hope, Pennsylvania, and the surrounding river towns of Lambertville, Stockton, there's a new Stockton Inn restaurant that is, one Michelin star quality, duck and great seafood. So there's a whole food scene and renaissance happening in New Hope that I for people, it's an hour outside of Philly, less, and about an hour and a half, 2 hours from New York City. So it's a great stop. But yeah, the Black Bass, there's so many just charming restaurants. You're not going to get your cookie cutter chain restaurants in the river towns. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome. So now we're going to dive into your career a little bit and how you became the points guy. So after Pitt, you moved to New York City and started working in fashion on Fifth Avenue in the cosmetic buying office at Lord and Taylor. Your boss was Sally Shaw, now your long-term friend. What impact did Sally have in your early days?
So I learned so much. So, I was in the closet throughout college. I always knew I was gay, but I just knew I had to move to New York City. I actually had been given I could have been a pharmaceutical rep for Johnson & Johnson, staying in Pittsburgh, making an amazing salary. And I knew I just knew my dreams were in New York. Being from Long Island, always going, my dad would use his points and we'd stay at the Marriott Marquis Times Square. The energy of New York City, I was like, that is me, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. So my friend worked for Lord & Taylor. And funny enough, Lord & Taylor needed more men. They had so many women that wanted to work in the buying office. Being a white male actually worked to my advantage. And lo and behold, they got me a spot in the buying program. And I thought for sure I'd be put in men's suits or ties.
Yeah.
And when I got my assignment in cosmetics, I was furious. I was like, I don't know anything about makeup. But everything happens for a reason, because the cosmetics business is all marketing, baby. I was helping get the hottest, it's relationships and marketing. That was what I learned. And Sally Shaw was a pit bull. I didn't talk to her for the first week I was in her office. I was her second assistant. So when you think about Devil Wears Prada, Sally, she was nicer than the boss. She wasn't quite a devil, but she was tough as nails. And her buying office was the biggest moneymaker at Lord & Taylor. Cosmetics, printed money. So I learned all about how staffing was important. You got to get the right salespeople at those makeup counters and the right team. Bam, that's how your business took off. You had to get the mascara sample from Chanel, the new, they only had one sample, and, all the buyers at Saks and Neiman's would be competing. And I learned that I was a secret weapon. Once again, a 6'7" male walking in, openly gay at the time, but all the fabulous, assistants at Chanel, I quickly became best friends with, having drinks, cocktails. And guess who always got the Chanel lipstick first? And at Lord & Taylor, they were like, how are you doing this? And I just always learned, use my charisma. I may not be the smartest. I was never the best at, running the numbers and spreadsheets. And that's what quickly kind of shifted my career into HR. About a year in, they were like, and I kind of raised my hand. I'm like sitting behind this desk most of the time. And we would have to look through stacks of paper. This isn't so much me, but let me go out on campus and recruit the next generation of buyers, because I can talk about this position and the glamorous life I had as a cosmetics buyer, and I'll get people who may want to go into banking to come to Lord & Taylor. So it was an amazing experience, being 22 years old. I was making $45,000 a year, which I thought would make me rich. Very harsh realities moving to New York. I did the fifth floor walk up. I was so broke and I refused to go to my parents. But those were the formative years. That's what I wanted out of New York. And that's why, it's kind of the dream to move to New York, not quite knowing what your path is, but letting this incredible city with so many opportunities allow you to choose your own adventure.
Wow. So you then went to Morgan Stanley. Are there things from that experience that have stuck with you to this day?
Yeah. So I loved HR. I was the head of recruiting at age 23 at a big office on Fifth Ave at the old Lord & Taylor building. It was amazing. But I was making, I think at that, we went to 55, and it really didn't make much of a difference. The math really started to sink in. And I think I had 2 weeks of vacation. I was paying $500 a month in insurance. I was like, if I'm going to do HR, this is 2007 now. This is pre-meltdown. This is all my friends in banking were getting bottle service, $100,000 bonuses. And my friends were like, look, even the HR people make great money and get the same benefits. And I remember it was 4 weeks of paid vacation, free top-notch Rolls-Royce benefits. So I somehow scammed my way into Morgan Stanley to run tech. So I went from recruiting buyers to recruiting computer scientists and engineers and data scientists from MIT. And immediately, I loved it. It was a challenge because this is 2007. So I'm going to MIT trying to get, today computer scientists are still in demand. Back then, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Bloomberg, all of these really, everyone wanted to work there. And then certainly in 2008, when the financial industry imploded, I mean, I was working across the street from Lehman Brothers when I saw everyone leave with their boxes. I mean, I was there at ground zero. And then, I mean, I was at career fairs and the Lehman Brothers box was next to the Morgan Stanley table. And I remember so vividly, it was like parasites. Finally, by half the day, people just started to rip the boxes open, take all the freebies. It was a wild, wild time. But once again, I leveraged my salesperson, mentality, talking to people, engaging with people. And that's what allowed me, I think, to be very successful at that job and still fly and wine and dine these top-notch students and, also putting it all on my corporate credit card and getting all the Amex points. So that's when I still wasn't making a ton of money, but my points rich, cash poor days started where I had elite status in Starwood. Rest in peace. I love Starwood. Anyone in the biz who was a Starwood fan knows what I'm talking about. So I was floating in points. Still no bonuses year over year because the industry was melting down. I remember them specifically. Congratulations, your bonuses, not getting laid off this year. Come back again next year. And I'm like, but I'm flying first class on weekends, traveling the world. So it was an amazing learning experience. And running the internship programs, I ended up going from recruiting to working in the tech division as their program manager. So all the new hires, I ran their training program. So talent management, recruiting, once again, the things that would become so important when the Points Guy took off and I needed to scale. So I really do. And I tell every young person I meet, stop focusing so much. Your major in college may be very important, but so much of what you do, like the job that I have today, didn't exist when I was in high school, influencing and, so yeah, always take even the jobs you hate, unbeknownst to you, you're probably learning a lot that you can leverage in the future.
Sure, absolutely. So the idea, you mentioned this before, but the idea of, using points came to you in the late 90s when your dad was working from home and he challenged you to find a way to use his miles. And you found out how to fly your family of 6 to the Cayman Islands for free. Can you tell us how this kind of sparked your passion and, how it snowballed from there?
So I was 12 when I first booked our first family trip, and my parents and I laugh to this day because it was totally lunacy that they allowed me to do that. I had just read The Firm by John Grisham and it took place in the Caymans. And my dad had challenged me to go on a vacation and we had done Florida a million times. We'd done Scottsdale once. We'd done Maine, Outer Banks. Like I was kind of sick of the sort of run of the mill domestic trips. And I told him we're going to Grand Cayman. He thought I said Grand Canyon for weeks until he got, I think, a paper ticket in the mail that said Owen Roberts International. He's like, where the hell is this in Arizona? And we didn't even have passports, I don't think. So, and I remember he had US Airways miles, but only enough for 4 people, which I was able to get him and my siblings. Then my mom and I flew through Miami on his American miles. So it was splitting the team, which is a concept I talk about in my new book coming out on how to redeem miles and get the most value out of them. We split the team. Selfishly, I wanted the flight that was connecting because I love flying so much. So to me, connecting in Miami was like 2 for the price of 1, 2 landings, 2 takeoffs, like hell yeah. And we rented a house on Verbo. And this is 1996 was that trip. And it was the best trip we had ever taken by far. And we were giddy. I just remember the feeling of giddiness. Like we got this for free or close to it. People go to the Jersey Shore and pay $10,000 for a family trip to and we were able to go for like 1,500, 6 people to the Caymans in January. And it was a 2-bedroom house. It wasn't fancy, but we swam it was right on the beach in Rum Point. And that was a moment where I was like, this travel thing brought us so close together. My dad had been traveling quite a bit. He was in healthcare sales. So there were a lot of times when he was gone. So this was our yearly consolation prize. Let's use his points from him being away and missing our games. And then we'll have these really special yearly vacations. So throughout the 90s, Barbados, Cayman several times, like we would go to different islands. And so that's when I learned. I had no idea that there were tons of other people doing this points thing, but that was where I earned my stripes.
Wow. So in 2010 is when you started blogging and sharing your tips on how to use points. Can you tell us about that experience and how you grew it into the business?
Yeah. So at first, the Points Guy wasn't even a blog. Most people don't realize this. For the first 3 months, the Points Guy was a static website that was a form. The idea came, my ex at the time, he was like, "You're brilliant at these points thing. You should make money off of this as a side hustle." And so I started the Points Guy basically I was a travel agent who would help people with points because I knew there was a market need. No one knew how to use points. In college, I had become deep into points. There's a website, Flyer Talk, which, is like Reddit. It's a community that goes deep. And I got real deep. I discovered the underworld of points, the real hardcore maximizers in about 2004. So in 2009, 10, I was an expert myself at the game. And so I was like, let me just make money being a travel agent. So I'd charge $50 a ticket and I'd help people go on trips. They had all these Amex points. I want to go to Paris. So come home from Morgan Stanley, come home, I do my little travel agent business. Eventually, I then started consulting. I realized so many people wanted to talk to me on the phone about their strategy. Hey, I'm doing Hilton. Does this make sense with this credit card? So I joked that it was my phone sex operator, my travel phone sex operator days, because I'd sit there and be like, yeah, well, did you think about Delta? Did you know you could fly to the Seychelles for just 20,000 more miles? And half the time, people just wanted to talk. And I'm like, sure. So people were paying me to talk and book their trips. And so it wasn't until about June of 2010, a friend was like, you should blog because I didn't know anything about SEO. He was an SEO analyst. He set me up with my own WordPress theme. And he said, just blog once a day, every day. This content is what people want. Trust me. Don't do anything weird. Don't do dark horse SEO. You don't need to cheat. Your content's gold, trust me. And I did that. In 6 months, the site really started to take off. And in early 2011, the New York Times reached out because they were hearing about me. And their columnist for the Frugal Traveler at the time, Seth Kugel, he was anti-points. He was old school. And a lot of people in the media, most people in the media, mainstream media, points were all about blackout dates. They're useless. And it's so funny because you talk to anyone now, 2011 was the heyday, And there's always a narrative. So I wanted to come on to be like, you guys, you're facing blackout dates because you don't know how to look. Airline websites don't show you the truth. So I started becoming this pro points voice in media, and that just blew up my site, my SEO, all these, then once as featured in the New York Times. But that article changed my life. It came out in April of 2011. So I quit my job because at the same time I started to make money, as my dad said, in my sleep with affiliate marketing with credit cards. And that was the moment where I couldn't keep just doing millions of award bookings. My dad was like, you can't just clone yourself or have a call center in India to do this really specialized task. So I, through a friend, got into affiliate marketing. It sounded very scammy at the time. And affiliate was like kind of all the top publishers, people look down on affiliate. But that's how I started making bank. I made $1 million in my first 6 months of doing affiliate on my tiny little rinky-dink blog. And then I realized the more I grew it, and that's why I quit, Morgan Stanley less than a year after my first blog post and started hiring people. And it's just kept growing ever since.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So now you're involved with a company called Journey. It's a loyalty program. Can you tell us about this and what makes it a little different from other loyalty programs?
Yeah. So I found myself, I'm the points guy. I find myself staying at non-points hotels more often than not. I am at the point in my life, I love luxury. I love bespoke experiences. I'll stay at points hotels. I'm at the Park Hyatt, New York. It's a great value on points, great indoor pool for my son. It fits my needs when I need to be in New York. But I find myself often saying, well, I don't want to just, and frankly, hotel loyalty programs keep devaluing, as do the airlines. And I thought to myself, I didn't start Journey. There's someone who I know, an entrepreneur that is the founder. And I started chatting with him about all of my sort of observations about the industry. I'm like, I find myself never staying at points hotels. It's a big gap. I love my airline miles, my credit card points. But I think the hotel industry is still in a very 1990s setup where even you book everything, it's free breakfast. Why? I don't want free breakfast. So why does every single channel say, I'm not a breakfast guy. Give me a Caesar salad at lunch. And no one has ever done that, So I have a lot of ideas on how the hotel industry should evolve. And more importantly, though, I want to bring in a loyalty program that covers all of these fabulous properties. And I'm friends with a lot of hoteliers like Chris Birch is one of my business mentors. He owns Nihi Sumba, which is one of the best hotels in the world. And I pitched this idea to him and just started talking about my pain points as a consumer. He started talking about his pain points as owning hotels and the challenges where, all this money is going to Google and paying for ads. It's not really getting the right people in the right hotels. There's not a lot of OTAs that are adding value in the process. In fact, when writing my book, How to Win at Travel, I talked to a lot of front desk agents and they flat out said, oh no, on OTA bookings, we'll treat you like the worst in house. So there's a lot of friction for consumers. The value of the traditional hotel loyalty programs, since Starwood went away, has been devaluing. I talked to a lot of luxury travelers and they're not, maybe they're into Hyatt, you'll find a Hilton person, but there's a lot of free agents out there. A lot of people spending a lot of money on hotels. And these hotels, these smaller boutique hotels, don't have the capacity to build up loyalty teams, CRM, marketing. So that's just I see this huge opportunity. On top of that, as an influencer, among other things, it's almost impossible for me to measure. I know when I stay at properties, I drive a good amount of revenue to them, but it's all untraced because all this content goes on Instagram where basically nothing is tracked. So I see this ecosystem more and more where influencers are driving real revenue, really moving the market towards destinations and properties, but there's really no tracking. So influencers are giving all their great content to the social media platforms and not getting credit for it, not getting paid. So I think there's another arm of this where we're creating a really interesting guild of influencers who are legit, who can move the needle for hotels, and creating a contract between them so that when a top influencer goes to Chicago, hotels should be bidding for them. They have free inventory. They could get free content. But a lot of hotels, once again, with the small one-person PR team, you don't know who's good or not, they pass. So I just see that there's a lot of missing opportunity in the hotel space that why can't we bring more hotels into loyalty? There's certainly a lot of money to be made on bookings, on credit cards. I know myself. So let's take more of that value and give it to consumers and hotel operators and create a program that encourages new business, not just viewed as let's just take from the margin and give it to the booking platform. So that's the high level why I'm excited for Journey. I think the industry needs a little bit of a shakeup, and in talking to consumers, I think there's a huge need for a new loyalty program in hotels and lodging, not just hotels, but also, home rentals. Airbnb doesn't have a loyalty program. They come out and blast loyalty. I think they have a very, very wrong opinion of loyalty. If you look everywhere else in the industry, loyalty is what makes airlines profitable. So I think that's a unique perspective from their management. But look, that's an opportunity for someone else to, say, we're pretty sure travelers like loyalty. I've got a hunch about that. So, Vrbo's program is, they had a whole shakeup around their One Key launch, new management, because they kind of bungled it. They ripped apart their old beloved hotels.com program. So I see all of these trends and I just see a massive opportunity.
Awesome. That was great, Brian. So now we're going to dive into the industry thoughts section. So kind of to get your opinion on points and things like that. So premium credit cards especially seem to be having a tough time delivering on high value perks like lounge access. We've seen some cards like Amex Platinum and Delta SkyMile Reserve, for instance, cutting back on access to Sky Clubs and Chase Sapphire lounges or Capital One lounges, for example. What are some issuers? What are issuers going to have to do to keep travelers convinced their products are still worth it?
Yeah. And what I see happening is issuers adding tangible perks like credits that you can get and you can add up quickly, like, oh, wait, this is worth it, because I'm getting this actual benefit. Because as you mentioned, just having a card that has lounge access, the credit card company does, in the case of, Delta, for example, Amex doesn't operate Delta lounges. So it can be challenging for them to promise something that another company's fulfilling, right? So I think what we're seeing is the credit card companies, Amex was first with this in creating their own lounges and their own experiences, trying to make those lounges bigger, changing the guest policy because they were so overcrowded is like the friction point. But I'm seeing more experience. The credit card companies know if they can add a little sparkle to someone's travel and make it, less friction, that's where people will be loyal for a lifetime. I also see, on the points end, the credit card companies are still adding new travel partners. They're adding transfer bonuses to make it exciting. So I think the people who have premium credit cards, the premium credit card market is still growing rapidly. There isn't a mass closures of cards and the industry's in crisis. Yes, there are those growing pains because frankly, the crowd was just too big. and there's only so much real estate in lounges. But I think the credit card companies are managing it by adding other perks where people can easily say, well, this card might be $695, but I shop at Saks and I do my airline credit. So, if they give you enough to say, well, I know off the bat, I'm getting close to the annual fee plus, plus, plus. And I think really where they should and can be doubling down is on perks, like protections, purchase protections. When the airlines, cancel your flight and you need to spend the night at the airport, most people don't realize their credit cards will cover a lot of those expenses. And that's why I'm passionate about still educating consumers. You have way more perks than you realize on your credit cards. So I foresee airlines getting more into that peace of mind when things go wrong will be your backup.
All right. This question is really just for me, not the listeners. But so is airline status still worth it? And what are the pros and cons of sticking with one airline? Because I found myself when I lived in New Jersey, I was a United guy from Newark and moved to Phoenix. And now I'm an American Airlines guy from Phoenix. And it drives other people who I have to travel with or trying to book stuff for me crazy because I'm like, no, it has to be American Airlines.
Yeah. So airline status as a whole has become less valuable across the board. I think it's sort of like the wealth gap. At the top tier, it is still valuable. And if you're traveling so much, the perks, upgrades aren't happening nearly as much. A stat that really stands out to me, when I started the Points Guy, 80% of first class seats domestically were given away to elite members. So if you were a mid to high top tier elite, you were getting upgraded from cheap coach to first class a lot of the time. Now that number is flipped. Only 20% are being given away as complimentary upgrades. So that was like a core foundation of elite status. Because now so many of the perks like free check bag, priority boarding, you can get that from a $100 a year credit card. So I would say to those low tier elites, generally, it might help you if your flight gets canceled and you're an elite member, they automatically rebook you over everyone else. But then say to yourself, how many flights a year are getting canceled? The number of flights are getting canceled statistically is like 1 or 2 a year, depending, so unless you're unlucky. So I would say, and I did a very open about, be a free agent. If you're flying decently here or there, I say have the credit cards that give you so many points, you book what you want when you want it, because that's how you live a happy life. Especially as you get older and you value your time a lot more, you're not connecting just to get points or segments like you used to. And now that doesn't even matter because the airlines are now making you spend so much on their co-brand. My lesson to people is there's an opportunity cost for every single dollar you spend. If you're going to earn one airline mile, that is half the value of a credit card point that could be transferred to 30 more partners and open up a world of possibility. You need to understand that you could have been getting way more value by getting 2, 3, 4, 5 points per dollar on a more valuable card that has probably better perks. So I think a lot more people are saying, well, why am I putting everything on one airline card? I know this happens all the time. People are like, I have 4 million Delta miles. How do I fly Emirates? I want to go on my honeymoon. And I'm like, you can't, because you've made the decision to get, instead of earning nickels for years, you've been earning pennies. And people are like, I think people are not realizing the value that they are foregoing by chasing the status that's getting cheaper. So I wouldn't say elite status is dead. I just think you need to jump through lots and lots and lots of hoops. And I think a lot of the audience that was used to it 10 years ago saying, it's worth it. I'll give them my business. Now just get a premium credit card that gets you in the lounge, that gets you, access to more award seats or better customer service instead of spending thousands and thousands of dollars for the hope of future value in the form of maybe an upgrade.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. So what are some of the biggest travel related mistakes that you see people committing with their points these days? And what are some of the mistakes you made early on that you learned from?
I think the biggest mistake people make with points is hoarding them. There's so many hoarders these days. And that drives me nuts because look, the points economy, it's the smartest business that's ever been created. The airlines are making more money selling points than they are flying planes because they control the currency 100%. So they can today, and they are slowly eroding away the value because the airlines have to give Wall Street returns. And due to a million reasons, like no new planes really being made and no new airports being built, they're not building profit by growing capacity at 25% a year. It's impossible. they're hitting their 20% growth by juicing more value from the existing system, charging you for what used to be free, and earning miles on points that they have full control to devalue, taking billions and billions. Okay. And then, so hoarding's a bad strategy. So use them. I think the second thing is not knowing how to use them appropriately. So, when I started the Points Guy, my knowledge allowed me to book the best tickets. I would know the ins and outs of how to transfer Amex to Aeroplan to book a Lufthansa ticket for 50,000 points versus a $500,000 ticket being 500,000 Amex points. That's what it costs when you buy it. So many people, I think, don't know that they could be transferring and saving a huge amount of points by transferring versus buying through the airline or the credit card. Now there are sites like point.me, game changer. If you have an Amex card, point.me/Amex, you can use it for free. And it'll tell you, hey, don't buy the ticket for 500,000. That $5,000 ticket you could have for 50,000 points if you transfer to this partner. So using technology to do the heavy lifting for you instead of having to read a million Points Guy posts is an easy way busy business travelers could be getting more value. And once you start realizing, oh my gosh, this transfer game, yes, it takes a little bit more planning and preparation, but that's how you stretch the value of your points. And that's when you don't care about elite status because you can book business and first class whenever you want when you know how to play the transfer game.
So what's the best way for somebody to get started? So if it was somebody just getting out of college and they're like, okay, I know I'm going to start traveling. What's the best way to get started?
Well, I mean, you gave me this lob ball, so I'm going to hit it out of the park. So my new book, How to Win at Travel, which hit shelves February 4th, it takes you from zero to expert. It's a 15-chapter book. You don't need to read it sequentially. It'll teach you how to earn points, redeem points, how to get value out of perks that you never knew existed, in addition to beating jet lag, staying healthy while traveling with kids. I take you through all of it. So clearly reading my book, thepointsguy.com, we have a huge team of writers now covering everything in the industry. And really, I love points because they're a currency that the more you mine your knowledge in, the more valuable they become. So anyone listening today right now, if you've got a ton of American Airlines miles, you can Google how to maximize American Airlines miles and just start reading because there have been prolific bloggers, not just at the Points Guy. The knowledge is there. Take a morning and just, whether you have Amex points or Chase points, it's all out there. Every single blog post you read or Instagram reel you watch, you'll have aha moments, and that's what makes this game fun. You got to put in a little bit of work, even with these new technology. But I guarantee you, the minute that you start redeeming for incredible value and you start flying business class for far cheaper than what a coach ticket costs, it'll change the way you look at travel.
So your book came out February 4th. You kind of touched on it already. Anything else you want to plug about it?
Yeah, it's an optimistic look at travel. It's not just points. It's far more than that. I open up. I think we're living in the platinum age of travel. Everyone waxes poetic about the golden age. Flying used to be so great. Wrong. It was crazy, crazy expensive, super unsafe. There used to be hundreds of hijackings a year. It was chaos. You would have to make 5 stops to go to Singapore. Today, you can do it nonstop. So I set the tone for, okay, stop belly aching, stop complaining. Yes, travel could be better. But guess what? You don't have to sit in those ever shrinking coach seats if you teach yourself the game. And I will teach you all of the foundations of what you need to know. I will lead you to the water. And at the end of the book, there's truly probably 1,000 core lessons throughout the book. Even if you get a small fraction of them, you will speak much more fluently. And I think maybe the most important chapter is how to protect yourself when things go wrong, because that is a constant. Travel, it will always go wrong. You'll always have delayed flights. And the key is knowing when you're asking for a favor, which is what you're doing most of the time. And that's why I see people making the mistake of screaming at the agent who has full control over your destiny. Stop, change your mentality. So I think the book also includes a chapter on etiquette, how we can all be better travelers. So I think it's a great gift for anyone, even a new traveler in your life. Even if you're an expert traveler, I learned a ton, like how to, battle jet lag, which isn't just about sleep or getting as much sleep on the plane as possible. That could actually hurt jet lag. So there's a lot of lessons in the book, and I'm confident it will save you many, many more times the cost of the book in value and time, frankly.
Definitely will check it out. In the etiquette portion, do you talk about standing up right as soon as the plane lands?
Yeah, I talk about, please just let people leave the plane row by row unless you've really got that connection that's about to leave you. Like that grinds my gears. Yeah, we talk about a lot of the etiquette. Stop bringing stinky food on planes. Stop going to the airport duty free and trying on every fragrance, because that to me is almost worse than BO, to be honest. Just be mindful. Wear clothes where your skin's not touching the person next to you. Generally bare feet on planes. Yeah, you can wear flip-flop in Hawaii, but don't put your gnarly feet up in between the seats. Things that seem so natural to me, I keep seeing. So I thought, let me just put it together. And I interviewed a really amazing etiquette expert, interviewed people like Richard Branson for his take on things like reclining your seat, which is okay to do, but you should be respectful. Don't never slam your seat back, and don't recline during meal service, because no one likes to look at a scalp as they're eating cheap airline pasta. So we have a lot of fun in the book too. And like I said before, you don't have to read it sequentially. If you have a kid or have a friend that's having a kid, I'll teach you everything from baby moons, when you can travel, board certified physicians, when to put your baby in a car seat versus on your lap, all the statistics and mentality behind that. So I'm really proud of the book. It's been 15 years in the making, but better late than never.
Absolutely. Can't wait to check that one out. So this whole time we've been asking you the questions, Brian. So now we're going to turn the tables. We're going to let you ask David and I a question.
Yes. How do you all think the hotel industry needs to evolve to be in 2025? Where do you think the hotel industry is falling flat?
Well,
David, you want to go?
Yeah, it's technology. I mean, it's what I always find funny, and I've run for a couple of years. I ran a guest engagement app, and we did Radisson's apps, and we did Caesar's mobile food and beverage ordering. And I always just would say, I think it's so funny that hoteliers have this mindset that you use an app for your Uber, you use an app for your airline, but then when you get to the hotel, there should be no value in a hotel brand or an independent hotel having an app or technology that can help the guest experience. So for us, what we focus a lot on in this podcast, and kind of in my career from running hotels to running tech companies, is getting hotels to embrace new technology. I was just talking to someone earlier about a company that's taking off. They were at Fitur, which is a big trade show in Spain, and it's a company that allows you to just book the exact room you want through a 3D tour and everything, so you can see the location and book it. And you would think 2025 that would already be there. And it's not. So I think it's the tech side for me.
That's what I was going to say too, but I am going to go with the experience side. I think we're going to see a lot more hotels partner with local attractions, local restaurants, and we're kind of seeing it a little bit now, but specifically in the independent space, there's some hotels that are doing awesome stuff, partnering with, attractions in their city, restaurant, things like that. But, kind of teaching guests and visitors on what the locals do, what the kind of cool places to go are.
I have one final one too. What's the most magical property you've been to? Not necessarily luxury, but just somewhere like hotel where you're like, wow, this is like
most magical property. So one of my recent favorites is in Delaware, and I like Dogfish Head beer, and it's the Dogfish Inn. And I walked in there, and the people were incredible. They basically gave us bikes to ride around for free and explore the city, go to different breweries. But the whole experience, we went out there and they had a fire pit. And that night, we just hung out by the fire pit with the staff and just were talking, sharing experiences, telling stories, things like that. So it wasn't the most luxury hotel I've ever stayed in, but the people made it absolutely incredible.
Yeah, for me, it's a easy one, but there's a reason why. So it's the Ritz-Carlton in Puerto Rico. And that was because it was my wife and I, our first vacation without the kids since we had kids. So there was like a 4-year period where everywhere we went, the kids were with us, whether it was Ocean City, New Jersey, or we went to Dominican Republic. So this was our first vacation. So not only was it a great property, it was just like that feeling of, no kids.
The San Juan one is reopening this May after a full remodel. It's supposed to be amazing.
Right. Yeah, that's the one. I think for sure that's the one we were at. Yeah.
Awesome. So our producer, John, he's been listening the whole time here. He's going to ask you one last question before we get you out of here, Brian.
All right. You kind of talked about it, the Journey loyalty program, but you mentioned there's a big missed opportunity, you think, with hotels and loyalty, and especially maybe those independent type spots or the more luxury properties. I'm curious, what is your ideal landscape when it comes to like how you operate and how you view points and how this would all work together?
I think hotels, where I'm seeing a lack is just there's lack of connectivity in hotel stays. I can't tell you how many times I stay at hotels. Have you been here before? They really don't have, back to the technology piece, CRM. So I'm hoping for a loyalty program that connects hotels that are not owned by the same people, that allows you to actually enhance your stay. And I'm not just talking about knowing your like wine preference for a free bottle of wine, but really taking personalization to the next level so that you don't have to spend so much time. Also, just technology, like being able, it drives me crazy now. I stay at beautiful spa resorts where there's not even a tech platform to pre-book your spa. And then you show up and the spa's booked for 4 days and they have one 30-minute appointment. I'm like, help me help you. I want you to spend money. And it's just so much friction. And I think loyalty can be more than just like the points and staying for free. I think loyalty is like actually using those points for really good value when the spa has openings. You know, so maybe you can get in a world. Bottom line with Journey, what I want to create is a program where it's dynamic in the sense of your points can become extremely more valuable for stuff that's going to go broke anyway. You know, for the hotel, an empty spa appointment 2 hours before, I love booking last minute. If I can go on my Journey app and I can get triple value for my points, I'll absolutely take that. I probably would have so many, and I'd be spending more money too on product, et cetera. I think there's a way where hotels can change the way they look at loyalty as, oh, these are the free guests where the parent company is making all the money and we now need to fulfill it, to, oh, wow, these guests engage in a completely different way. They're booking the restaurant at the hotel. So many hotels have amazing restaurants. And unless you Google the hotel, find the concierge's name, email them, wait for a day return to get back. Oh, wait, no, we have this time. That's where I see like loyalty coming into play, where it's all in one app. Your stay is planned. You can book a trainer through the app if you want to. It knows your preferences so that the next luxury hotel you stay, you can pick up where you left off if you want or start fresh. That's where I get excited about loyalty and providing value to everyone in the ecosystem versus the hotelier is feeling scammed, the consumer is feeling like these points aren't worth anything. So saving time and adding value.
That's great. Well, that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier. This is the part, Brian, where you already got in some good plugs, but let us know how people can find out more about you, about your company, and plug away.
Yeah, so go to thepointsguy.com. That is the flagship website. I'm at Brian Kelly on Instagram, and you can buy my book. It'll be at every airport, Hudson News in the country, and wherever you get books. Ebooks. I narrated the audiobook. So How to Win at Travel, out in stores now.
That's great. So that does it for another episode of The Modern Hotelier, hospitality's most engaged podcast. So whether you're watching or listening, we appreciate you and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks for having me. Safe travels.
You made it to the end of The Modern Hotelier. Thanks for watching or listening. The Modern Hotelier is produced by Modern Hotelier Media. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube, or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you know a good guest, sponsor, or have media needs, feel free to reach out to us at hello@themodernhotelier.com. Thanks and have a great day.